Sandy Monteiro is from FENIX360, and we're in for a lot of changes in the music industry with a new technology that's come along. Welcome to Noise 11, Sandy.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of what we will be discussing over the course of the next half hour will be very relevant to North America, to Europe and the UK, as it has already been shown to be to the Asian market.
Very, very much so. I think everybody is searching for an answer, and we think we have one.
Well, let's talk about the evolution of the business model. Digital comes along. Suddenly, we don't have that business model anymore. And the whole world changes with digital in how music is released and how music is marketed, isn't it?
Yeah, and how it's consumed as well. And that was the first big change for the industry, because I think we'd gotten so used to the fact that somebody would buy an album, and an album would be like, 8 to 12 songs. So when you paid for the bundle, you paid for 12 songs for a lifetime of usage. The change of model was, first of all, you broke down that pack where you didn't buy the bundle of 12, you just bought the one. And that was a bit of a change, but still workable, the single download like iTunes. And then suddenly the model changed even more, where you didn't pay for lifetime usage. You actually paid pennies on the dollar, right, to pay for it as you listen for it. And for the artists and for the record labels, that was a major, major shift, because these guys were used to getting, advances for album sales, for the next 5 years in a single check, and then suddenly that lump sum or that security, the economic security, just disappears. So that was the massive change for the industry.
Let's talk about the timeline of the evolution of what we experienced in the 21st century, because it's been so much rapidly changing since the year 2000. Around 2000, we were introduced to Napster. That set the bomb off in the music industry. That evolved to the paid download, and suddenly we had the digital store. Things like iTunes start popping up. That needed a device for consumers to consume this new way, as you were saying, that they would need to consume music. Along comes the iPod, then the iPhone, and that includes the iPod. That changes audience consumption yet again. We have access to the internet. We can stream music. We don't have to download it anymore. While all that's happening, social media starts to become a thing, firstly with Facebook, Twitter, and then various others after that. We've created all these silos. Along comes FENIX360, and FENIX360 breaks down the silos and puts the artist back with the audience.
So let's just take a step back. And the thread that runs through that whole list you just mentioned is the fact that all these changes were driven by parties not in the music industry. So when you talk about Napster or Apple, then moving forward to YouTube, then to Facebook, then to Instagram, then to Spotify, then to TikTok, right? All these different platform changes change the way consumers engage and utilize music. And at every point in time, the content industry or the music industry did not have a say in how that model rolled out. We were reactive rather than being part of the process of actually determining how that model rolled out.
For you personally, you were on both sides of that fence. Firstly, back in your Universal days, when you joined Universal in 2002, I guess at that point, the record industry was still very much about the album, very much about the CD.
Very, very much of the infancy of digital. I mean, in fact, it was seen as a pet project, not even a commercial reality.
And then it started to become a threat.
Yes, very much so.
So what were the safeguards that were put into place that gave the majors the comfort zone to move forward with digital?
You give the majors too much credit in thinking that they actually had an idea or they had a roadmap on how they were going to manage this crash landing from physical CD into digital. I mean, the truth is these tech companies and tech platforms were driving things forward, and we had to think on the fly on what exactly we could or would do. I mean, I think you'll be well aware of the famous anti-ripping DRM debacle, with the CDs, anti-ripping on the CDs. And then all the things with iTunes where if you downloaded it to one device, you couldn't move it to another device, and all the different, restrictions that were put in place, which of course we had no freaking idea what to do. But, taking a step back, the thing about the past with the CD is that it was such a good format for music, or it was such what they said was a digital format. It was a perfect copy of the recording, right? Therefore, it would be the last format ever. So because the industry was stuck on this thing of being the last format ever, I mean, we put severe roadblocks up to try and stop the progress into digital. So let's not try and kid ourselves to think that we were all seeing and all magnanimous and let's move to digital. It was like, how can we slow this thing down, right? Until it got to a point where we couldn't slow it down, and then how do we actually move this forward? And the thing that actually kind of gave us the comfort was actually the digital reporting from iTunes. Because for the first time, we actually had metadata. I mean, we talk about big data now, right? We actually had fine detail on where our consumers were, how old they were, how much they spent, all these different things, which we never had information in the past. Because when you sold a CD at, just say, HMV or Jolly Roger and from a record store, you had no idea where that CD went and who bought it. But with iTunes, we start to have real data, right? And from that data, well, us at the Universal, we basically thought, hey, we could transform these things into different sorts of business models where it didn't have to be the one-size-fits-all model. So that was where I think Universal was a bit ahead of the pack, because we had a very progressive bunch of executives at the company. And they said, let's freaking try this, because if we don't try it, we're going to be pushed into it anyway. And if we used our knowledge and we used the data, we could actually try and guide the business to where we felt it was a fairer model for us.
We saw in the late 90s where artists would sell albums, and because they sold albums, they would sell tickets because they were selling albums. That model suddenly changed, and we went from a single album model to, I guess, pretty much a single model with digital. And that started to affect the charts as well. Suddenly the song was more important than the brand of the artist. In some ways, we've gone back to a early 60s model.
It has. And, and it saddens me, but it was economically devastating for the artists. Like I was mentioning before, in the past where they sold albums, they got paid for a bundle of 10 for a lifetime of usage. And the digital model changed it to, every time you listen to a song on radio, you got a bit of a bit, right? Which is a very huge difference from being paid lump sum up front.
So for you personally, being the president of Universal Southeast Asia, heading up new business for Universal, and also in your capacity as the chairman of the board for the Record Industry Association in the region then, you had a responsibility then to steer the digital boat from one side of the river. How difficult was it for you to jump over to the other side?
It was a bit easier for me because I took a break from the music industry to actually join a startup in the early 2000s during the .com bubble down there. And it gave me an exposure into what digital was all about. I mean, we were busy trying to build a platform while Napster was launching. So it kind of gave me some insight to, you can't fight this. This change is going to come anyway, right? So for me, it was a bit more pragmatic. How do you look at commercial models that work for us and work for the platform and work for the consumer? And it was then trying to find a win-win-win, and then trying to get the green light. And the good thing, like I said, we had some really progressive leaders at Universal up top. And when we brought out these progressive models to them, we got the green light, which is not, I can't say that for all the record labels, but Universal in particular was very progressive. So I think that was a really, really wonderful time for us to try new things. And, it was, try it, but if it screws up, don't do it again. But we had that kind of leverage to try and get the guys up in LA or London to basically greenlight some really crazy ideas that we had. And the good news for me is that a lot of them worked. And I built my my reputation as being, the father of digital for the music industry in Asia from trying these crazy ideas and seeing them work. So that was quite a plus.
I guess digital in its early days worked for the record company model.
Yeah,
It didn't so much necessarily work for the artist. So
correct.
along comes FENIX360, which is artist driven. Explain
Yeah.
the point of difference.
The thing about a record label is that we have a catalog of artists that runs decades, right? So when you work on a digital platform, you are both mining the current hits as well as the depth of catalog that you have to kind of stabilize your income. So while you might see a bit of a change, it's the amortization of risk over the whole catalog that basically stabilizes your income. Unfortunately, not many artists are in that position where they have the depth of catalog to drive usage for themselves, as a single artist. So, I mean, you live and die on your hits, and not every artist can have a hit every 2 months to sustain themselves. So it was a huge blow for the artists. And I think what we saw also with the record companies that they became a lot more sensitive to signing artists. So you saw a number of artists being dropped off catalogs because they were no longer commercially viable, and people who were enjoying the guardianship of the record label were suddenly finding themselves as independent artists. So there's two parts. How does the artist move forward? So the ones who had the internal fortitude to really try and fight for a space for themselves, they started to adopt the digital platforms, especially YouTube, to try and figure out how they made money from this. But I mean, you will know platforms like YouTube pay the artist pennies on the dollar. Platforms like TikTok pay them almost nothing. So the artist really had to figure out how do I monetize myself to make myself relevant. And what we saw in Asia was that a lot of artists were using platforms like TikTok and Instagram to kind of drive their profile, but they didn't actually make any money off the platform. But from having their profile, then they tried to do business on the side, which was like kind of like, if you like what you saw down here, click here and you'll go and you can buy a t-shirt, or you can come and see me at this performance or whatever. So they were basically doing all the activity on YouTube and TikTok, but they didn't make any money from it. So they were trying to make money from the promotion they got on those platforms in order to monetize off something else. But the sad part for the artists was that the platforms like TikTok and YouTube were making billions of dollars off advertising off these platforms. So which means if Paul the artist, right, did all this content, you would get pennies on the dollar, but TikTok and YouTube would make dollars on the dollar, right? And in fact, it was billions of dollars on the dollar, right? So if I'm not mistaken, last year, the year before, I mean, YouTube made 50 billion in advertising. TikTok made 10 billion in advertising. How much did they pay the creative industry? I mean, a drop in the bucket. So what Phoenix is trying to do is to say, if you're just starting out a tech platform and you need to pay all the costs to set it all up and infrastructure and all that kind of stuff, yeah, we understand that you take 99% of the money. But what if you're already established? And what if, I mean, you are making billions and billions of dollars? Isn't it now the time for you to give the artist more, or time to give the creative industry more? And we had a similar kind of set up in the music industry in Asia in the mid 2000s when something called ringback tone was coming popular. Mm-hmm. So we had a very much piracy market in Asia, but the one platform that couldn't be pirated was this thing called ringback tone, which means when I called you, I would hear a song instead of a ringtone, right? And that song would be a song that you chose for me to hear. And when we first started this platform in Asia with the telcos said, it's going to cost us $10 million for this platform. And, we don't know whether it's going to be a success or failure. So, it has to be a 90-10, right? So the telco took 90 and the music industry took 10%, right? And we said, okay, since you invested $10 million for the platform, we'll say, okay, to the 90. The telcos made their money back in the first 4 weeks, right? The contract was for 2 years, right? So at the end of the 2 years, we said to the telcos, hey guys, you already made your money back on the platform. Now we need to share, right? And the telco said, no, screw you. It's still 90/10. And we said, we don't think so. And we literally shut down ringback tone in Asia for 6 months. And then the telcos came back and said, okay, we'll give you 50/50, right? And then everybody was, it was boom time Charlie again because everybody was making money again. And I think with the tech platforms, it's a little bit like that. So yeah, we understand starting a tech platform it's a lot of capital and is a very, very expensive venture, but it's not a $50 billion it's not a $50 billion venture that you need to have that kind of income to pay for all this cost. So we just felt that if we were to launch a new platform, we wanted it to be fairer to the creative community because they deserve to live off their craft. If I'm a singer and I'm pretty good and I've got like 1,000 fans or 5,000 fans, I should be able to live off my craft. I don't need to go and be a waitress in the afternoon or be a street sweeper in order to basically do music videos and sing in clubs at night to fund my livelihood. And that's the premise of what FENIX is all about. If you are a talented person and you know how to create content and you have a following, you should be able to live off your craft. And that's the fundamental, philosophy of what FENIX is all about.
So along comes this technology genius, Alan Klepfetch, and yep. You joined FENIX.
So just so I was the head of digital for Asia in the mid 2000s. This guy, Alan Klepfetch, I met him in that period, and he had basically created a streaming platform, ad-funded streaming platform, to launch 2 years before Spotify. But because the industry wasn't ready, right? His platform wasn't given air, right? And 2 years later, Spotify got the air and see where it is today. So I always remembered Alan as being a very, very far-sighted, technologist that was very pro music industry. And in this case, very, very much pro artist. So when I left Universal in 2016, 2017, the first person to call me was Alan. And he said, I had this idea. He just said, looking at all these platforms that are making billions of dollars, they're giving the creators nothing. Why don't we create a platform that gives the creators the majority of the money? And that is the genesis of FENIX.
So I guess the 360 in the FENIX 360 gives that power back to the artist.
It's more than that. It says the 360 is you, all of you. It's what an artist does on a daily basis that they think is just mundane because it's part of what they do as work. But if you have a fan, right, they would find that so interesting that you could actually monetize that. How do I explain this? So if, let's just say Michael Jackson, just for the sake of argument, I mean, Michael Jackson did the Thriller music video where he turned into a werewolf, right? The song and the video is one thing, but you know what? He sat in a chair for 10 hours while they put on that werewolf makeup on him. And as part of the industry, we just thought, yeah, that's part of the cost of doing the video, or just the sacrifice that you need to sit on the chair for 10 hours and get the makeup put on you. But a fan would actually, you might pay 10 cents, you might pay 20 cents to watch an accelerated version of Michael Jackson turning from Michael Jackson to the werewolf, right? And this is what we're trying to tell the artist. You are the asset. It's not just about your songs. It's about you as everything. So, Paul, let's just say you're an artist, and you've got 5,000 fans, right? 500 in Australia and 4,500 in Indonesia and the Philippines, right? So what FENIX does is that it gives you a platform to actually monetize all sorts of different things about you being a person. So you say, hey, guys, it's the new year. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to do yoga every Monday morning from 9 to 10 a.m., right? Who wants to join me? So you have, 500 fans in Australia who are willing to pay 20 cents to join you for your yoga session every Monday because they are fans of yours. And how amazing is it to be able to do, yoga with an artist that you love, right? But you've got 4,500 fans in the Philippines and Indonesia who say, oh, we love Paul, but we don't have 20 cents to give him, but we want to join the yoga session. And what happens is FENIX creates a platform where those fans can watch ads and earn ad credits transfer those ad credits to Paul, the artist that they love, and then they join the session for free, right? So what happens is that I'm not doing this because I want to hear Paul's song. I actually want to do yoga with Paul because he's an artist that I love. And we create these commercial platforms that allow Paul to monetize around the world, both from fans who have the financial ability or the fans who don't have the financial ability to both enjoy engaging with Paul, the artist. So this is the revolution of what Phoenix brings to the table.
So the artist is treated as a partner, not a product, when you do something like this.
I wouldn't say it's a partner. We're trying to tell the artists that we're giving you all the tools for you to be an independent commercial entity. And we will provide all these tools for you for free, right? And what you need to do out there is start to think about creative ways to engage and entertain your fan base, because your fan base is your source of stable income. So if you take the other platforms, it depends on how popular your song is for that month or that quarter or that year, right? But with Phoenix, it's not about a hit song. It's about you being popular as an artist and you with your ability to engage with your fans. So that's the difference between our platform and all the other platforms. So it's funny that we say that Phoenix is the next generation, the future of social media, the next generation of social media. And I guess it might be interesting to explain that a bit. So to me, the first generation of social media, like Facebook, was what we call the reach phase, which means you reach out to school friends you haven't seen for 20 years, and friends from around the world that you haven't seen for 10 years, and then you share photos to make them jealous of how amazing you are as a person. So that's the reach generation of social media. Then the second phase of social media is what I call the Instagram and the TikTok phase, which is the watch and be entertained phase. So you just sit there and you get entertained by this platform. So for us with Phoenix, we call ourselves the next generation, the future of social media, because what we want to try and do is take that watching and turn it into engaging. So which means as a fan, I don't just watch Paul, I can actually engage with Paul. So Paul is the artist that I love, and I had the ability to actually watch him and also engage with him. And for Paul, you have a commercial value with your fans engaging with you, and what you do directly benefits you economically.
So FENIX360 really takes artists through the various stages of their success. They get to control, yes. They get to customize, they get to commercialize.
Yes, very much so. I mean, to me, there's four aspects of Phoenix that is a revolution from where it stands at the moment. So the first thing is that the artist gets a fair rev share to a point that they could be economically independent and actually live as an artist. The second one is with regards to how you get paid. So currently, I mean, artists, if you are signed to a label, you upload a video on the 1st of January, YouTube will basically issue a report at the end of February for January and pay you at the end of March. That's 3 months, right? And then if you were part of a label, the label would receive the money and then they would hold it for 3 months and pay you at the end of the quarter plus 1 month. So you as an artist did a video that came out on the 1st of January, you get paid at the end of July. I don't know any business that can actually sustain a 7-month cash flow freeze, right? You do stuff in January for July payment. I don't see many businesses that find that as a good model. So with the Phoenix system is artists get paid almost immediately, which changes their cash flow situation tremendously. The third one is, like I was saying, we will create the tools. So we talked about the yoga session with Paul. We will create the tools that will allow the artist to generate new streams of income, right? And these platforms are created free of charge to the artist. And the last part is about data. So all these big companies are collecting so much data of all their users, but for the content creator, none of it is shared with the content creator, which means if you did a fantastic video and you got 10 million views, a company like YouTube or Facebook would be collecting all this data, right? But you would get none of it. So in our case, we would actually share that data with you that you can actually better create more engaging and better platforms for your fans for the future. So to me, those four pillars are what differentiates Phoenix from any other platform out there at the moment.
And we've been talking about this like it's a music platform. It's a creative platform, isn't it? It's for
It is a creative
authors, it's
platform.
for the visual
Yeah.
arts, it's for actors, theatre,
Yes.
TV.
I mean, I'll give you a very interesting scenario when we were in Indonesia launching this for the first time. And we had a fairly full auditorium of media. And through the questions, we were surprised at how positive the media was with regards to the idea of the platform. And suddenly this one guy put up his hand and said, can I say something? And we were like, yeah, sure, what you would like to say? He says, I'm a photographer, and I was part of the official national photographer for the National Media Agency. I won't mention the name, but it's the official agency for the government. And he said, through COVID, all us photographers were dropped as employees, and we are now contracted project staff or whatever. And we're lucky to get paid for any of our photos. And he said, would it be possible for Phoenix to become a repository of all our photos and manage the usage of our content, and for us to get paid for all content? And we went, yeah. And he said, I will get every freaking photographer, every freaking news agency photographer in Indonesia to basically join this platform, because this way, we know we've got a platform that can help us monetize, because currently we're not. So the short answer is, it's not just about music, it's about all creators.
FENIX360 is available from all the app stores?
Yes, for both the Google Store and the Apple Store, yeah.
Yeah. How easy is it to set up?
So how do I explain this? How long is a piece of string? So if it's just set up as a social media platform, it's very easy. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? But don't forget, we're trying to set this up where it can be a standalone business platform for the creator. So in order to make it commercially viable, you need to put some effort behind it. But don't forget, all the platforms to commercialize are there for you. All the payment systems, all the credit card systems, all whatever, all already in place for you. So if you want, your page can be turned into a standalone app. The standalone app can be turned into a website, and all that is for free. So in order to move it down the chain, there's more and more effort that's needed on your part as an artist. But if you're intending to make this something that helps you become commercially independent, make the effort. So it's easy to begin, but the more you want to do, there are more and more complex elements to it, but there are also the commercial aspects that will make you commercially independent.
So it's called FENIX360. It's available from the App Store. It's available now. It's available in the Western world, and it's all rolling out. So it's great to hear the story, Sandy, and we look forward to the Australian launch very soon.
Looking forward to seeing you guys in Melbourne. It'd be awesome.